or a family enterprise can sometimes be more concrete. I am deemed the successor in this family enterprise, and I will have a designated role to do something that leads it. Legitimacy is more of a condition or a value, and they relate to each other. I think they relate strongly to each other. So legitimacy is saying, well, oftentimes part of what intrigues me so much about this work around legitimacy is if I'm working with a family and a family member is deemed to be a successor or a family council chair or somebody in a position of some kind of influence, there's oftentimes this invisible division that goes on in these families because there isn't either a perceived level of mutual trust or mutual understanding. And so attaining legitimacy is saying, you believe I belong in this story. I believe I belong in this story. And what I'm going to do to help make a contribution to the continuity of the story is valued by both me, and I perceive you to value that. And so where families find alignment as they take these transitional journeys of continuity is if that sense of we all belong in this story. That is that sense of legitimacy. And some families that I work with see it as part of their values exercise. What do we deem as legitimacy in our family? And some of them perceive it to be if you know your family or you as an advisor work with families around conditions for success, what creates a higher probability for success, and one of those conditions is that condition of legitimacy. And so what I often do with families is work with them to say, how do we attain that beyond the designation of roles: successor, board chair, family council chair, board member, committee member, whatever that may be, employed, active in the company. But that true sense of how do we give legitimacy to our dream? How do we give legitimacy to our family system, the collective? And then how do each of us as individuals in the family find a common ground to understand that legitimacy is in the mind of the beholder? And so if I want to feel legitimate, I have to be able to communicate to you what I'm feeling and what I believe in, so we can find that common ground. But when every stakeholder that affects and is affected by the continuity planning is part of this legitimacy conversation, then we can move forward as a family, right? Whereas a role is somewhat external, right? A role is you get to be in this designated role. So Russ, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or clarify anything that I said.
No, again, I think that it covers the point exceptionally well in terms of the differences around that. I think sometimes what happens is there's a confusion around, as you say, the role kind of signifying that somebody has legitimacy versus how somebody feels whilst they're in that role. And it is that feeling within the role that we're talking about when we back to Jamie's point around external and internal legitimacy. It's how people are feeling within that role. That was something that came through within the research as well, was that there were people who on the outside you would say were kind of successful, were performing their role very well, but still had this challenge of how do I deem myself or perceive myself as being legitimate. I think that's part of the important understanding around this in terms of the work that we're doing together.